Good evening from New York. Happy Friday. I'm Chris Hayes. Right now in Arkansas, Tea Party Republicans are threatening to take health care coverage away from 100,000 people and quite possibly cause the entire Medicaid program in the state to collapse.
The president repeatedly said that if you like your health care plan, you could keep it.
If you like what you have, you can keep it.
The promise that you could keep your plan was never to be kept.
Remember when Republicans thought the worst thing you could do was to take away a health insurance plan from someone who had come to depend on it? Well, Tea Party Republicans in Arkansas are right now threatening to do just that to 100,000 of the state's poorest residents. These are the people currently enrolled in something called the private option, a privatized version of the Medicaid expansion crafted by Arkansas lawmakers and approved by the White House. The plan, which uses federal money to purchase private insurance for low-income residents, appeased enough conservatives to pass. And it made Arkansas one of the few southern states to take the federal money. And that made a massive difference in a state with the 10th highest uninsured rate in the country.
The first thing I did was go to my general practitioner, and I walked in the room, and she looked at me and she said, "Okay, we have insurance now. Where do you want to start?"
But now, taking a page from the Ted Cruz playbook, Arkansas Tea Party Republicans have decided to hold the state's entire Medicaid funding bill hostage with the demand that the state retract the private option and kick 100,000 people off their insurance. And they're using a procedural quirk of the Arkansas Constitution to do it. Though it's incredibly rare, the Constitution can require a supermajority vote for funding bills, which means it takes 75 out of the 100 House votes to pass the Medicaid bill. If it fails, 100,000 people will lose their private option health care on July 1st. In fact, if the bill is not passed, the entire Medicaid program for the state will collapse on July 1st. That means kids on Medicaid kicked off their health insurance, senior citizens kicked out of nursing homes because Medicaid is what's paying to keep them in them. Most Arkansas lawmakers, Democrat and Republican, want to pass this thing.
We don't have a problem with the majority of the legislature being for this. We don't have a problem with a supermajority of the legislature being for this. We don't have a problem with a majority of Republicans and Democrats being for this. They are. But it takes 75 out of 100 House members and 27 out of 35 senators. So one senator or one House member could sway the entire effort.
The private option is projected to save the state $670 million over a decade. Arkansas lawmakers have been trying all week to pass the bill, but have failed to get to the 75-vote threshold. Today, they failed again and went home for the weekend. They'll try again next week.
If you look at Arkansas, we're kind of an island in the sea of states who have rejected Medicaid expansion, so I've got concerns about migration across the state lines of people that come here just for Medicaid coverage. You know, I don't think we want to be a Medicaid magnet.
Meanwhile, people's lives hang in the balance. And for a sense of how high the stakes are, look at this. A study from Harvard and City University of New York found that between 7,000 and 17,000 people are expected to die because states have decided not to expand Medicaid.
It would just be a nightmare. It would just be I would feel like my government had absolutely turned their back on me.
These are the very real hostages the Arkansas Tea Party has taken.
Joining me now, David Ramsey, associate editor at the Arkansas Times, who's been doing fantastic reporting on this. So, David, before we get to the back and forth and the drama in the chamber this week, I guess the first question is this thing working? I mean, is there a reason that people want to repeal it? Is the private option working? Are people getting health insurance? Are they happy with it?
Yes, I mean, the sort of ironic part of this whole argument is that just as sort of the rollout issues were going on with healthcare.gov, the private option for Medicaid expansion actually has been going quite well in Arkansas. More than 100,000 people have been deemed eligible, gained coverage. People generally seem to like their insurance. They have, through this program, they have private insurance instead of going to the traditional Medicaid program. So in terms of what proponents might wish for this program, it's gone about as well as it could go. But nevertheless, you know, the folks that don't like the private option are trying to take this opportunity to defund it.
So what changed? I mean, this thing passed last year. It got more than 75 votes. What happened? Why are the folks in Arkansas trying to take this away?
So in policy terms, really nothing changed. Again, the program operated in the way it was supposed to operate. More than 100,000 people have gained coverage. I think that what changed is partly political. There are, the anti-Obamacare argument carries a lot of weight in Arkansas and for a rump group of Republicans in the House and originally in the Senate as well. That was sort of enough to make a political argument to try to defund this time. I think that, there are some very specific things that happened. There were lawmakers that flipped who are getting primary challenges, lawmakers who are running in other races and have to deal with this in the Republican primary. This is a policy that polls show is relatively popular in the state, but remains controversial among Republican circles and is a dicey issue in a primary.
How unprecedented, audacious is this gambit of this rump Tea Party caucus to basically take hostage the entire funding bill for all of Medicaid for the state and ask for this supermajority vote?
So the supermajority is a requirement in the Arkansas Constitution. It's a bit of a quirk in the Constitution. It's from an amendment that happened in the 30s, and it's fairly unique to Arkansas. Typically, the precedent has been, during a legislative session, they would fight out a policy, but it was possible to vote for an appropriation even if one disagreed with a policy within that appropriation. I think that part of what happened is that last year, when this was originally enacted, kind of the idea was, it would be possible for a 26% minority to block it, so therefore the idea was the threshold was 75%, that's what we have to get. Now, it is a radically new maneuver. It's in the Constitution. Constitution says what it says. This is a tool that's been available, but to use it in this way to essentially say, we have these policy demands and we're going to hold the appropriation hostage for those policy demands, that is a radical new precedent.
And it does sound very similar to what led to the shutdown, right? I mean, the shutdown was about a government funding bill in Washington, D.C. to fund the whole government. The request was, the demand was, you got to repeal Obamacare or we don't pass the other, essentially stuff. That seems to be what happened here. Finally, quickly, Tuesday, they're going to try to get this again. Are they going to get this done? Are these people going to have their health insurance taken away from them?
So they need 75 votes in the House. It already passed in the Senate, 27-8, getting the needed supermajority. On the House side, they've had 4 failed votes this week. There is some thought that there may be some votes that will come around next week. There's all kinds of issues with timing and politics and so forth. The count appears to be at 73. They got 71 votes today. There were 2 members that planned to vote for it that just weren't in their chairs. They got 73 votes today.